Hello, guys. Welcome to Dead in the Don. Obviously, you can see we're the other way around this week. That's because this week's show is all about him. So the Don's been making a list. He's checked it twice. I think we know he's been naughty and nice. But those of you that might have watched some of it, you might not have watched all of it. We've been getting some issues, questions, etc. So we're here to answer everything. Anyone who hasn't watched all of them, I'd suggest afterwards go back, watch them all. I will try to link them all into one video so they can be watched back to back. But we're going to get in. So, obviously, first of all, how are you, Graham?
Yeah, I'm okay, Phil. It's good to do this. Before you just rattle through the list, if anyone's watching and want to join, that is the chat. That is the link to join the chat. Come on, and we'll ask you questions once we get to the point where we talk a few people. But yeah, Phil, if you carry on, mate. And I'm
obviously, guys, if you do
let
come
you take
on,
the lead.
If you do come on, guys, try to have some of the list available, because obviously it's a 60-man list here. It's quite an epic amount of people on here. It's hard to remember them all. So try and have some sort of format there so that we can know where we are and who we're talking about. So I think to start off with, I'm just going to rattle off your list, Graham. No questions, no getting into it, just so that everyone knows who you've put, because some people might have only watched one of the videos. So we're just going to get everyone familiar. And just for the rules, because there's been a lot of confusion, this is greatest, basically, athletes of all time, not specified to one sport. He has got a couple of rules in where you can only have 6 people from one sport. So if you believe Zinedine Zidane is the 7th best footballer of all time, he can't be on the list, even if he's in the top 40, because we can only have 6 per sport. Doesn't mean you'll get 6 per sport, but that's his rules. So I'm just going to rattle it off, and then we'll go in tens. So at number 60, he's got darts player Eric Bristow. Number 59, NFL running back Barry Sanders. 58 is Ruby Walsh, the Irish jockey. 57 is the late Kobe Bryant. 56, New Zealand fly half Dan Carter. At 55, Seve Ballesteros, the golfer. 54, some of you might not know this one, Laurence Taylor, legendary defensive player for the New York Giants. Johnny Wilkinson's at number 53. Golfer Nick Faldo at 52, followed by a fellow golfer Arnold Palmer at 51. We've got Michael Johnson, the athlete, at 50. So Steve Redgrave at 49, Frankie Dettori, 48, Jerry Rice, NFL wide receiver, 47, Mo Farah, local lad in the news at the moment, he's number 46. Pistol Pete Sampras is number 45. And then we've got Magic Johnson at 44, legendary LA Lakers point guard. We've got Steve Davis at 43. Welsh boxer Joe Calzaghe at 42, Peyton Manning at 41, Gary Player, the golfer, at number 40, Iron Mike Tyson at 39, Lester Pigg at 38, Lennox Lewis at 37, his brother Carl Lewis at 36, Beefy Botham, Ian Botham at 35, Thierry Henry's on this list, number 34, Jimmy Anderson, cricketer, 33, Stephen Hendry, 32, Wayne Gretzky. People that don't know who he is, he's an ice hockey player. 31. Diego Maradona, 30. Brian Lara, 29. Ayrton Senna, 28. George Best, 27. Baseball player Babe Ruth, 26. Nadal, number 25. Floyd Mayweather Jr., number 24. Michael Phelps, 23. The late Shane Warne, 22. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 21. So now we get into the top 20. He's got AP McCoy at number 20. He's a jump jockey. Ronnie O'Sullivan, great snooker player, number 19. So Don Bradman, Australian cricketer, at 18. Sugar Ray Robinson, 200-odd fights as a boxer, number 17. Roger Federer, still going at 40, number 16. Michael Schumacher at number 15. Pele at number 14. Jack Nicklaus at 13. LeBron James, number 12. Darts player Phil the Power Taylor, 11. Lewis Hamilton, number 10. Novak Djokovic, 9. Sachin Tendulkar, number 8. Usain Bolt, 7. Messi, 6. Ronaldo, 5. Muhammad Ali, 4. Tiger Woods, 3. Tom Brady, 2. And Michael Jordan tops the bill at number 1. So that's your list there, G. There's quite a few names to get through. So we're going to go back and look at them in the blocks of 10 as we did them, yeah. So like 60 to 51. Go through like why you've picked certain players and whether anyone's got any objection to it, blah, blah, blah. Anyone that you might have missed out, we'll cover halfway through. and people that I might suggest. So obviously, like number 60, that's starting off Eric Bristow. So let's just know why he's in there, mate.
Well, obviously, I'm a big darts fan and playing the darts team. Darts has been part of my life for 20 plus years. And I completely understand why he wouldn't be a majority of people's list who weren't darts fans, but he was the first real darts superstar. So just as a sentimental point, obviously, for me, he's the reason why darts is how it is now. He made it big in the 80s. He was the best player up till Floyd Taylor started dominating in the mid-90s. So for me, Bristow would have to be in the list. But I completely understand why someone who doesn't watch darts wouldn't have him in his list. And that goes for a lot of people in here. But for me, just because of my connection to darts, I'd have to put him in there for me.
Okay, so there'll be a few personal choices in there. Barry Sanders, 59, fair enough. I think an American list would probably be a bit higher, but that'd just be because of the geography and the sports. So Ruby Walsh, jockey, 58. For me, maybe a bit high in the top 60 list. Just talk us through quickly, Ruby.
Again, if I was Irish and this was an Irish list, it'd probably be in the top 5 because obviously horse racing, literally the biggest sport in Ireland. A lot. But then obviously, there were whatever that GAA is really big, and no one knows anything about that bar Irish
exactly.
people. But I watched jump racing quite a lot. I've watched it again since I was allowed to put a bet on. So again, another one I understand, but people who like jump racing would put him in his list if they're Irish or not. He's the best Irish jockey of all time for me. Again, I'd understand the point, maybe not in the top 60 for majority of people, but for me, again, it's a personal choice. But if you were to ask 20 people who are in the horse racing, he would be in the top 50. I think top 50 is a push, but he's good enough to be in the top 60 for me.
What I find, just we go into them all individually later, just with horse racing, there's a general, like, obviously it is a sport, but I think you've got an Arsenal shirt on there. Doesn't mean you've had a bet on maybe Arsenal to win today or whenever they play. But I think you'd be hard pushed to go to Cheltenham and see someone just sitting there in a Ruby Walsh jacket, just cheering him on because he likes him. I think a lot of people will know. It'd just be people that have a bet will know him. People that don't probably would struggle to know who he was. So I think it's quite a niche.
But you got to remember, horse racing is quite big, mate. Horse racing is quite big. You got to remember, Cheltenham sells out. How many people go to Cheltenham a day? 60,000 to 70,000.
I think
horse racing is very big for me. So again, no one in England will know anything about baseball or ice hockey. So no one in America, no one but Americans will know ice. They will know more flat because they don't really do jumps. So I'd get that. But in this country and in Ireland and in Scotland and Wales, everyone knows who Ruby Walsh is. Not everyone bets on it, but you get 50,000 people 4 days in a row going to a festival. So obviously that means it must be popular. It's not like it's them in Man City where they just about get 25,000.
How many do they get at Wolves for a midweek fixture? in the
what
flat.
They get a few thousand.
Yeah. So I just think outside of the major things, it's basically if you're into it, you're into it, right? Basically. So let's move on. So Kobe Bryant, 57. A lot of people would probably have him higher. Dan Carter.
What do you mean a lot of people would have him higher?
I think there's a lot. I think maybe the fact you've restricted the list.
A majority of American pundits have him the 10th or 11th best player of all time.
Yeah, I think there'd be a lot more basketball players, So if you think like who you've got him next to,
the 6th list, yeah, okay.
So you've got him like in between someone that sat on a horse and someone that kicked a ball in between two posts predominantly for his career. And he's is he 4th, 5th on the all-time point scoring for NBA? So you think how popular that sport is, especially in like North America, but globally. But I think it's hard. They're not saying he'd be right up to this, but I think maybe a few people would have him a bit higher. Then Sevi Ballesteros.
I think he'll be 50 odd. I wouldn't go any further than top 45.
So Ballesteros, 55. Again with him, I think there's a lot of golfers outside of the sort of 3 legendary ones that you could throw a blanket over and they'd all possibly be, like if you had to pick another 4, you could pick 4, I could pick 4, someone else could pick 4, and we probably wouldn't pick the same
so who would you
supplementary plays. Well, I wouldn't say I'd have different ones, but I wouldn't maybe have them. I wouldn't maybe max out on golf. Or maybe it's a little bit further away, but I probably wouldn't have looked into Gary Player as much. Not that I followed his career because obviously he was finished before I was born, but just sort of players like Sevi being European, you get a lot more sentiment with him, don't you? And you see a lot more, especially before you got Sky TV and internet and stuff. You saw a lot more of the documentaries when the Masters was on. They'd show all old footage in the Opens that he won. So it's sort of like with the Nick Faldo thing, isn't it? You've got more memories of that because you watched it. Now you can watch pretty much anything. You can go on YouTube, you can go on the internet, you can see all these sort of archive stuff. But when we were watching telly as lads, we just had what was on at the time, didn't we? So you've got more of that sort of like predetermined stature from them. So yeah, Sevi Ballesteros there. So Laurence Taylor, again, a lot of people won't know who he is, but obviously you can say some more on that if you want to. But people have said Aaron Donald in the comments, but without Laurence Taylor, there is no Aaron Donald. He reinvented the defensive line position, Swiss Army knife across that line.
MVP.
Did things people are doing now in his day. So I think, yeah, Americans would probably argue he could have been higher because they love him that much. But again, outside of American sports fans, no one's going to know who he is, even though he was a legendary athlete.
Like no one's, yeah, go on.
Yeah, so Johnny Wilkinson, again, similar with the Carter. I get where you'd come from because obviously he's a national hero. We are English. We have only got that one World Cup to go on about, basically, haven't we? So Johnny Wilkinson was the
that was one of the main reasons.
Yeah, his drop goal. That's the main. No one else did anything in that final. He kicked all the penalties and he kicked that drop goal at the end. So that was basically Johnny Wilkinson versus Australia. So yep, understand him. So again, Nick Faldo. Again, like he probably wouldn't be this high in most lists if you didn't cap it. I think a lot of the other sports would push it so that you'd only have one or two from the. I'm not going to say lesser sports because golf is quite a popular sport, but I think if you was allowed more NFL players, more basketball players, more footballers, he'd get pushed out a little bit. Is that fair enough to say? Obviously, you've got him in the order, like you can see the order that you've got for golfers, so that's fair enough. But again, like you were saying, that was a personal preference because you liked him as well, wasn't it? Even though you did say in the original video you loved watching him growing up, you must have been about 3 when he was winning all the big stuff.
Well, he's about 4 or 5. I remember watching when he won the Masters. I watched that on
his last one when he beat Greg Norman.
Even when he was shit for the last bit of the night, I still watched him all the time. He was still always getting the attention.
I think with him though, he was quite good because he was captain afterwards as well, wasn't he? He was always around the Ryder Cup even after he finished playing.
The thing is, like, I think golf's one of the biggest sports in the world. So golf, you will get to Gary Player, but Gary Player won. Not many people more than Gary Player when it comes to majors, and Nick Faldo won quite a lot. So I'm a big golf fan. I watch it religiously. I think Chris would watch it. I like to think Chris would probably be similar to me and have 6. I think 6 golfers should be in this list, and I think a couple of these ones are. I think Sevi and Nick Faldo are preferences, but I think the other 4 should be in this list. It's just a case if Americans would put on the old boys like Hagen or Bobby Jones and etc.
I think your top 4 are more about dominance, like dominating the sport, where the last 2 are more sort of like, your sexy players, the ones that just made you enjoy the game, if that makes sense. Like you'd see Sevi play a shot or make that long putt. So it's not necessarily about what he achieved in terms of trophies. It's more about how he played. And
yeah. Well, we better move on, otherwise we'll be here all day. I haven't got long. Carry on.
So then again,
4 out of 10. Thanks, Max.
So 51, you've gone Arnold Palmer, again, golf player. So I think some of these am I right in saying you opened it to 60 because it was really going to be 50? Was that just because you were struggling to fit everyone in?
Basically.
Yeah, so it's sort of, I think this top 60 is probably the most disjointed part of the list because it's sort of almost like you've just had to throw like a couple of rugby players, a couple of golfers and the jockey in there just to get your number up. Yeah, not mugging off the list. It just sort of seems like you didn't know who to leave out, so you've made an extra 10 tier, if that makes sense.
There might be a little bit of truth in that.
Yeah, so like Arnold Palmer, again, Jack Nicklaus, Woods, blah, 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 I'd have them higher, but Arnold Palmer's quite famous for his after-golf activity as well, and he's always stayed a big part of the game. He's got his own bloody event, hasn't he? the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So you can't have something made after you if you're not a legend in the sport, I guess.
Exactly.
So we move on. So we go to the 50 to 41 category now. So there's a few sort of Olympic sports in there now.
Chris. Fuck off. And Jay, oh, here we go. All bumming each other. Like Jay and Mac are bone of a game. Carry on, Mac.
Anyway, like I'm going to say, right, there is going to be a lot of mugging off of this list, but it is harder to make a list from scratch than it is to just come in and make one, because we could all probably make one tomorrow and then we'd be like, oh, fuck, we missed him. And then you've got to reconstruct the whole list again to sort of make it relevant. So Michael Johnson, athlete, number 50. I'd possibly have put him a little bit higher but I used to be an athlete and I used to watch all the Olympics and that, so he ran my event as well, so that's probably, for me personal, I thought he was better than 50th best athlete, if that makes sense. So Steve Redgrave, again, he could be in or out of people's list. I think because we're British, he is Mr. Olympics, isn't he? Not a popular sport, but no one has done that before or after. Five straight gold medals. Frankie Dettori. So again, it's another one where I think there's too many jockeys on the list, but what's he done? Pretty much the second best flat jockey of all time, is it?
Second best.
Yeah. So another one that caused a bit of a stir when we put it on there, but you'll explain this one now. So Jerry Rice, a lot of people weren't happy with him being at number 47. You take a minute to explain that.
Well, he's a wide receiver. Now, if Americans did a list, he would be in the top 20 because he's the best wide receiver of all time. I've been watching American football, about 15 years now, maybe just under 15 years. I've really been in it for about 10 years. Now, I never saw Jerry Rice play. He played before my time where I was watching it, but I know how good he was. It's very similar to Barry Sanders. But I can't justify putting someone in there that I didn't really watch as much or any idea about. Yes, you can say, what about Arnold Palmer and all that? But they dominated a single man sport. Jerry Rice plays in this sport where it's very easy to be forgotten. There's a running back called Todd Gurley, who was the best running back 3 years ago, and now he's not even in the league. Jerry Rice, I think I could have put him a little bit higher, but for me, as a Brit who has I love American football, it's a hard one. I think he's in the right position, but I wouldn't dismay maybe put him in slightly higher. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, sort of. But again, I think like a lot gets made of quarterbacks in NFL lists.
Yeah.
Like they get bummed perhaps too much. But you think if you've got great wide receivers, you're going to be a good quarterback, aren't you? Because you've got someone who can catch the ball if you've got a good line. But yeah, so moving. I'm only going from like what we've had in the comments, yeah. So you know when we put these videos up and we've been pasted.
Who's we?
Yeah, you're going for a detention in a minute, yeah, according to that.
Yeah, carry on.
Any more of these dodgy picks? So Sir Mo Farah's been in the news, and he lately, number 46. Is that just a personal preference because he's a local lad, or do you actually think it?
I think Farah's good enough to be in the top 60. I don't know why he isn't.
Yeah, because obviously
he's British, maybe, but maybe again, Americans probably wouldn't put him in there, but I don't see why he shouldn't be in the list. I think he's in the right position. Yeah, he's local lad, British lad. I've seen him win a World Championship live. Again, you remember things, and you remember how good he was in his prime. He's in the news now, but this is not about him in the news. This is just about him as an athlete. So for me, in the list, right position, no higher, no lower. I think he's perfect.
But when I ran with him when I was a kid, and you could tell probably from about year 9 he was going to go to the Olympics. Maybe not win every single medal like he did, but I think I read somewhere before when I was researching this list that he's won the most major gold medals in terms of like World Championships, Olympics, than any distance runner. So forget like Usain Bolt, any sort of like for the 5, 10,000 marathons. More gold medals in major international sport than any other man alive. So I probably don't credit it as much because I knew him. You sort of just think, oh, that's just Mo on the telly. But if it was someone else doing it, you'd be thinking, fucking hell, look at all these medals he's won.
Yeah.
So, and down at Mega Bowl, you can't help but notice him, can you? Big mural on the wall. So yeah, so Pistol Pete Sampras, first tennis player. Again, he was probably the first player to dominate, wasn't he, really? Because you had your Bjorns, your McEnroes, your Jimmy Connors before. But I don't think anyone, was it 6 Wimbledons he won in a row in the
Something
90s?
like that. 4 or 5.
And you just couldn't beat him. Obviously, we've got a new era in now, but he was the first one that stood out to dominate.
Yeah,
Obviously, he hasn't done as good as the others.
He was the greatest player of all time pre-2000, but unfortunately, there's 3 other guys that just took it to the next level. Simple as.
Yeah, then we've got another Johnson, Magic Johnson. Obviously,
greatest point guard of all time. Enough said.
Yeah, again, like depending who you are, you might have him a little bit higher, but he's not going to be top 20 or anything like that. Steve Davis, first snooker player on the list. So obviously you've got 3 on there. All 3 of them pretty much dominated their sport for an era. You've got one dominated the 80s, one dominated the 90s, and one's dominated ever since. So is that one where you reckon they all deserve to be on the list, or just because you're a fan of the sport more, you've put 3 in?
I know if you did a list, Phil, I know you would have all 3 of these on your list because you're a big snooker fan. It's just, again, snooker growing up in the night, snooker is still big, but 2000, 2005, snooker was absolutely massive, and it still is. And everyone from Britain and everyone who likes a bit of sport knows who Steve Davis is. People can say, "Oh, well, Americans," but I watched Steve Davis as a kid, and he dominated the 80s. He's only 2 guys have won more world championships than him. So why not?
But here's the thing. Here's a thing for you. Did you know when they started this Moscone Cup stuff, they didn't have any English pool players? So they got Ronnie O'Sullivan, Steve Davis, and Jimmy White and Alex Higgins to go and play American 9-ball players.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they put it up them a couple of times, yeah? So for Americans to sort of say, oh, yeah, we don't know who these people are. So you think, okay, they're just going to play a completely different sport and dominating the people that
Ronnie was good at pool as well. Ronnie in particular. I know Steve Davis was okay. He was more for the trick shots.
No, he was quite good in some of those Moscone Cups back in the early 90s.
Okay. Anyway, I think Steve Davis and me, snooker player. I love snooker. I think most Brits would have him in the top 50.
I think it'd be a reach to put anyone else on there because people were going to say Alex Higgins, but he was just a flair. He didn't dominate.
Yeah,
consistently.
Would you have these 3 in your list if you did top 60?
They'd probably be the only 3 that get on it.
Would they be in your list?
They'd be the only 3.
That's the same with me.
Don't know about the order, like might be a slightly different ranking, but they'd be on there. So boxing next, Joe Calzaghe.
He's potentially, obviously not on my list, but most people say he's the greatest speed boxer of all time. I've had no issue with that. I think he's unbeaten. He didn't duck anyone. I think he's in the right position. He's never going to get the attention like all the Americans, but he's done nothing wrong not to be there. Unbeaten. That says enough, and I think he's in the right position.
But I know they were past their prime a little bit, but he took out 2 of the biggest American names before he retired as well, didn't he?
He beat them for world titles. So.
And who was the guy? Who was the guy he beat before as well? Left hook Lacey, wasn't it? Jeff Lacey.
Yeah,
that was his big title win, wasn't it? And he was like Errol Spence Jr. now, wasn't he? He was like the big hype at the time for the Americans that he was just going to come over here, fuck Calzaghe up. But Calzaghe did a number on him.
Calzaghe beat everyone, and he deserves to be in this list. I think even Americans might have him in his top 6. For me, he's an immense boxer.
And if you look at like undefeated fighters, what was more exciting to watch? Joe Calzaghe's career or Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s career?
Joe Calzaghe.
Exactly, because you were getting, they were proper fights.
Value for money. Yeah. Phil Edmond's not in this list, mate. Sorry. I mean, Peter Edmond. Carry on.
So back to NFL. So number 41, you've got quarterback Peyton Manning. So again, a lot of people paddied about this list because they thought we were ranking American football players, but I think there's probably a ceiling on. So obviously, he's not even the best quarterback on this list. So to put him in the top 30 would probably be a push. So just anything you wanted to respond from the comments we got on those videos at the time?
He could have been in the top 40. He could have been 31, 32. He could have even been 30. But for me, I don't know. Again, it'd just be a push to put. Even though I love American football, I struggled to put many. I just couldn't put any in the top 30 because
I think it's
a sport that's very much American. And yes, there is a 20% or 30% popularity of UK people who love American football, like myself, like you, like Chris. But Jay's probably watching now, and he'll probably put in the comments very shortly, American football shit. Even though I love American football, I'd struggle to put majority of them in the top 30. Peyton Manning was a fantastic player. He's the second best quarterback of all time, 5 MVPs, 2 championships. And he had to be in the list, there's no doubt. If I did it again, it'd probably be in the top, just outside the top 30, maybe 31, 32. But I'm not disappointed that way I put him. I still don't think that it's a massive mistake. He's not too high, but I potentially could move him again.
So I think there's an argument that he's probably the most talented of the quarterbacks we discussed, but obviously he didn't turn that into Super Bowls enough.
I get that, Chris, because you're a massive American football fan. So am I. Again, 30, 29, but he wouldn't be in the top 20 with the likes of people like, LeBron
AP McCoy.
James. But AP McCoy is a personal preference. Okay. And Maka would have AP in his top 20. I know that for sure. Anyway, moving on.
Right. So, where are we now? Number 40, Gary Player. Sounds like one of Gary McMahon's fantasy picks, doesn't it? A Gary Player.
Go away, Laura.
So, then some people would have this guy a bit higher, but obviously he did some things towards the end of his career to taint it. So, Iron Mike Tyson, Lester Piggott. Again, it'd be people that wouldn't know it because of the age and the thing, but he what he's done probably won't be beaten. You've got the Lewis brothers, so Lennox and Carl. So what did you make of Lennox Lewis in his career?
Greatest heavyweight of all time.
What did you make of his last fight, his final fight?
I can't. Fucking, you're going about 15 years at least. Or a member of Lewis.
When he lost, well, when he won against Vitali. Do you think he knew? Do you think he knew at the time that was it for him? So he just retired. As champion.
He went out graciously. Lennox Lewis fought everyone, and he beat everyone he fought. Yes, he lost a couple of times, but he always came back. He never ducked a fight. He shouldn't have jawed with Holyfield first time. That's a jaw. That
was a robbery.
2 wins. He is the greatest British boxer of all time. Never duck everyone. He won all the titles. He dominated the sport throughout the late 90s and 2000s. Absolute legend. The fact that he doesn't get mentioned enough does annoy me. And for me, he's in the right. Yeah, he could have been higher for me. He's got to be in the list.
What do you think of the Klitschko brothers? Both of them individually.
Vitali's better than Vladimir, isn't it?
Yeah, Vitali's the best. What I feel is that fight with Lewis, he was winning that fight and then got cut. So I think Lewis saw that and just thought, "Fuck it, I'm the champ."
Vitali boxed better boxers.
Yeah, but with Vitali, I think he had the chance to be one of the greatest of all time as well. If it wasn't for letting his brother carry on, because his brother got the titles first, didn't he? And they wouldn't fight each other.
Sorry, I agree.
Yeah, so he lost 2 fights. I think one of them was the cut against Lewis, and one of them he dislocated his shoulder against Chris Bird, wasn't it, and pulled out.
Yeah.
So 2 fights that he lost, technically, you could say like he didn't lose them. Like obviously, he couldn't carry on with that gash against Lewis. So he had the potential to have an unbeaten. If he'd won against Lewis, his brother wouldn't have stood a chance of winning a medal. Like to see what Corey Sanders and Lamont Brewster did to him in 2 fights in a row. It was like just a punching bag, wasn't he? Down like a lead balloon.
Yeah.
So Carl Lewis, I actually think he's a little bit low on this list because of just what he managed to do in multi-sports in the
he
games.
Was a drug cheat. Wasn't he a drug cheat as well?
Not Carl Lewis. You're thinking of Ben Johnson.
No, Carl Lewis. I've spoken to many people, and apparently he was a drug cheat. I didn't know this. Many people older than me and you, apparently he was a drug cheat. I don't know how true that is, but every time I talk to the list of older people, they tell me Carl Lewis was a drug cheat. I didn't know that, so I don't know how true that is.
I think this is hearsay. Nothing's been like proved or. But
for me,
obviously,
forget all that drug cheat shit. I'm just saying.
Do it just
on the list again. He'd be in the top 25, no doubt.
Yeah.
I think I made a mistake putting him that high
because I think a lot of people they see like Bolt would win the 2 relay. He did it and the long jump.
But I asked a lot of people, name me 2 track and field, and they go Bolt and Michael Johnson. I asked 6 people that. Again, people same age as me, a bit older than me, same age as you, and they didn't take Carl Lewis straight away. And then, like I said, 4 people said, well, he's a drug cheat, so he shouldn't be there. So
I think people forget forget about Carl Lewis though, because when, like say the '92 Olympics, when Liverpool Christie won the 100 meters, you don't see any Carl Lewis after that. So people that were born in the '80s wouldn't have actually watched him live, like or on the telly. They'd have seen it through researching it. So I think and in college as well, he was phenomenal. Like if you watch some of the videos from when he was a college track and field star, he was literally like a superstar as a college athlete.
Yeah, like I said, I think Carl Lewis definitely would be a bit higher for me. So, yeah, I admit that one. Maybe top 25, maybe even 20. But yeah, I think maybe forget what the hearsay. Phenomenal career, phenomenal dominance in that sport and in multiple sports for a long period.
Yeah, so beefy both. Obviously a bit of a preference for but very, very good all rounder. Could have probably done either element, but with bat and ball, just on his own, really, because I think he's still quite high in the all-time wicket taker list, isn't he? Even though he is just an all-rounder.
He had a fantastic career. I would probably move him down a bit more, though, in the sense of up near to 40. I think even though he's definitely in the list, he's definitely. I think maybe looking at it now, I might have had him a little bit higher than what maybe.
But do you not think because we were so crap in that time as well, he was the only one really giving it to the Australians for a long period as well, wasn't he?
And Gower were the only real, Gower was a great player, but he was a bit boring. It was a bit like Atherton of the 80s.
Yeah, it's like if you got Atherton and Usain bloody just knocking the ball down and then him smashing it out the park.
Yeah. Liverpool Christie weren't that good. He had one couple of good years.
Yeah, no, that would be nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now we're getting into it with the preferences as well. So Thierry Henry, obviously we know he's your boyfriend. He's on the list, but I'll just put one out there. So he's better than Zidane.
For me, it is, yeah.
Okay. I don't think there'd be a lot. I think there'd be a lot of people that would put other footballers ahead. But again,
Agreed.
I know why you did
issue with that.
But there'd be some people that would put like their players.
He's considered the greatest Premier League player of all time. I'm not. It's not fact, but he is considered the greatest Premier League player of all time. We watch the Premier League. Yes, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I understand anyone who says any different. But for me, Zidane's a great player, but Henry's a better player than Zidane for me. Zidane was a great technical player, but Henry's got the stats. But I'm an Arsenal fan. He's my favourite Arsenal player. I'm going to put an Arsenal player in there. If someone like Chris did a Chelsea list, they'd have Lampard. If Chris did a list, I wouldn't be surprised if he had Lampard in there. And I wouldn't argue that because he's probably his favourite player. Or Terry, or Drogba, or whatever. But Henry's the greatest Premier League player of all time. Arsenal's greatest player. He was the best player in the world for 3 years. It was a tragedy he never got World Player of the Year, but that's politics. That's what happens, unfortunately. The party boy got it a couple of years because he had a couple of decent seasons, because he was more flair and he did tricks, and Barcelona played 10 men behind the ball against teams played 10 men behind the ball. Henry, for me, like I said, I couldn't put him above it because, again, the top other 5 players are all the same. A lot of people say the same 5. For me, great Premier League player of all time, greatest Arsenal player of all time. That's it, simple as. I don't think it's my action. I don't understand. I wouldn't disagree with anyone else.
I think if he was playing now, like say instead of Mo Salah, you would see a lot more noise about him as well. He'd be like the Ballon d'Ors.
Yeah,
but I think when he was playing, the Premiership was still struggling against like La Liga for like being the best teams, weren't they? We weren't winning a lot of Champions Leagues. The continental teams were dominating in that. Whereas like now, the Premier League is pretty much you've got 2 semi-finalists every year. So I think he would thrive more in today.
We better move on, Phil. Otherwise, we'll be here all day.
We're only like halfway through, and we're on time. So Jimmy Anderson, pace bowler. Again, for me, I'm guessing he's one of your favourite players. But to watch because
best pace bowler of all time.
Based on
Glenn
most
McGrath,
wickets.
No. Glenn McGrath, Jimmy Anderson. All right. A lot of people say Glenn McGrath. Glenn McGrath came into the best team in the world, a team that's very well structured. He never had any hiccups. He bowled consistently for 10, 15-year career, and he took a lot of wickets. He was the highest wicket taker. Absolutely immense player. Jimmy Anderson, a player who wasn't as good when he came to England, into an English setup where they weren't a good team, had issues with his action, had neck problems. He got dropped. He was crap. Came back, and 15 years later, no one took more wickets. No one is as consistent as him at his age, and still to be able to to put figures like he does. The way he bowls a new ball, the swing ball. He's a leader. He's someone you can rely on. He's someone who can change the game. And he's someone who's won games. For me, how he's got to where he is compared to McGrath makes him the greatest pace bowler of all time. Yes, you can say Walsh and Ambrose, but near the end, West Indies were absolutely pony. England have had a few rocky years, but they were a great team for the majority of his career, and that's because of him. And again, you could say preference, but for me, I don't care what anyone says. I'll stick it. He's the greatest pace bowler of all time.
Because, you know, if you were trying to do...
You can disagree all you want. I could have put him higher. He could have been my top 30 for me, because I'm a big cricket fan. And cricket's a big sport in the majority of the country.
Pound for pound over the pace boys. So I looked at a few earlier. So Glenn McGrath you don't like, but you know if you...
Glenn McGrath's a great player.
In comparison. So if people went above, say, Glenn McGrath first, Jimmy Anderson second, would you have a problem?
I don't understand where they're coming from.
Because, you know, like he's played
Glenn McGrath played for the best team that had it all their own way. It's like Messi for Ronaldo.
Because if you take...
It was all set up for him.
But he still has to bowl the ball. But whoever's bowling,
of course he has
to. You're just bowling at one player, aren't you?
And he's in the team, and he's got no obstacles. He's got nothing. Jimmy Anderson had to fight for where he is. Let's not forget that. People don't know this. Jimmy Anderson was dropped. Jimmy Anderson was shit. Jimmy Anderson couldn't bowl properly. Had neck issues. His action was pony, and he's become the greatest bowler just by stats wise. He's got the best stats. That's it. From where he is.
Yeah, but he's got he's got the most wickets. But he hasn't got the best average. He hasn't got the best strike rate. He hasn't got the best economy.
Who cares about that?
But he's played more games to get that. If you work it out, McGrath would have beat him on the same one by 60 wickets.
How old was McGrath when he retired? What, 35? How old is Jimmy Anderson right now?
Yeah, it's not about age, but it's how many. If you've scored 10 more goals than me, but you took 100 more games to score them, you're not a better goal scorer, are you? Yeah, you'll have the record for most goals, but. And then I looked at Daryl Stain, had a shorter career. Obviously, injuries involved, but his economy wasn't too good. He was expensive, but in terms of his average and his strike rate was phenomenal. If he'd had the same career with no injuries as well, like say he could have had a 20-year career, he'd have got higher numbers, and so would have Glenn McGrath if he played the same amount of innings.
Like I said, I think Glenn McGrath's a great bowler, but I just think Jimmy Anderson's journey to where he is makes him the best by a mile. That's mile for me.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of people that maybe wouldn't have him there, but I'm getting where you're coming from.
They'll pick out McGrath because he played for a team that dominated cricket for 10 years.
But just take this argument, right? If you're a bowler, me and you are bowling, I'm in the worst team, you're in the best team. What difference does that make about me being able to hit the wicket? Just because I'm in the best team doesn't mean they're going to let me bowl them out, does it? Yeah. So they both.
The atmosphere and where you play for, it always matters. It always matters.
I can understand. I can understand a number 9.
If you bowl for Bangladesh,
he'd still be bowling at those stumps, wouldn't he? He'd probably bowl more if he was playing for Bangladesh, so he'd probably get more wickets. You can lose every game and still get 8 wickets as the bowler if you're the best bowler in your team. Yeah,
Anderson's in the right place. I think I could have put him higher.
Anyway, let's move on now. Anyway, like I said, I get your point, but I was just putting a few options out there. So Stephen Hendry next, snooker, same sort of thinking with Davis. He won one more than him, so he's obviously that little bit higher. Won it in a shorter period as well, I think, didn't he? Was it?
Yeah, dominated the 90s.
All in a row, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, he won majority in a row. I know at least 5 or 6.
Yeah, it might have been. He won at a year gap, then won one. I know there was like a John Parrott won one, didn't he, between Davis and Hendry, then Hendry just took over. Wayne Gretzky, again, a lot of people have complained about this one. Obviously, you've only got one ice hockey player in your team, in your 60-man squad. So, do you think maybe he could have gone a little bit higher just because of the fact that all his records will probably never be broken in ice hockey? And obviously, it's not a sport we're overly familiar with, but I know sort of like a lot of Scandinavian places, Russia, that's quite a big country, and I think Germany have quite a bit of a following for NHL. So there'd be a lot of people that would see him at number 30 in the list and start spazzing out over it, which obviously they all did. So I'm not saying when I've seen American lists, they've all got him in like the top 5 and 10. But I'm not saying, oh yeah, he should be there. But do you think nearer the top 20 would have maybe been a fair adjustment?
I think he's in the right spot for me. But I'd understand anyone questioning it. But I don't watch ice hockey. I never watched ice hockey. He's in the list because of he is Mr. Hockey. I can't not ignore him. I put him high. I could have put him much lower. I could have put him in the top 50. But he's the greatest Canadian sportsman of all time. That's what people say. He is a legend in the sport. He is Mr. Ice Hockey. He's got all the figures. So I understand your argument. He maybe could be higher. I think I've got him in the right spot. Top 20 would be a push. But if you ask an American, they might pop top 10. Or a Canadian, they might have him top 5. And I wouldn't argue that because they probably watch that sport. They know a bit more about it. Mine's, I'm putting him in there because of what he's done and his record for the sport. I never seen him play. I'm never going to see him play. Obviously, he's retired. I've never seen highlights of him. He's got all the records. And that's it.
I think Canadians would probably put him number 1, to be fair. But anyway, let's right. So Rich, halfway. Let's have a quick roundup. I've got one person I want us to talk about, and then you can name anyone that you thought of since the list was made. So I think it was overlooked maybe because the medals he won individually, he didn't do them all in the same discipline. So I've got Bradley Wiggins. I think to be able to do road racing like at the Olympics, where you just do the one-off race, he's won that, the gold medal. He's won indoor in the velodrome. He's won more than Chris Hoy now, who we consider to be a legend. And he's won a Grand Tour as well. And to be able to mix all those, that'd be like Usain Bolt being able to win the 100 metres, win the 4x4 relay, then go out and win the marathon. The amount of body transform and different training, different diet that needs and discipline. I just think maybe for that alone, not for any one individual thing that he did, but to be able to combine all that and win across all elements of the sport, I think maybe deserved to be in there.
Agreed. I fucked up. I forgot. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, and
that's it. I just forgot to add him in. Yeah. I think he would have been in my top maybe 60, maybe top 50. He wouldn't have been high, but he would have been in the list. He won the Tour de France. But yeah, I just fucked up there. Simple as I can put my hands up. Forgotten. Yeah. Not lie.
Well, I've got two guys. I'm not saying they should have been in this list, but just when I was looking for like people that were considered like all-time greats but didn't actually win anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I've come across Bo Jackson. You know him?
Yeah, he didn't have a great athlete and his versatility, but that's not enough for me.
No, well, what?
I knew his name was about, and I know he had a great, very brief but very electric American football career, number 1 pick. I think he went to play baseball.
Heisman Trophy winner. Yeah.
It's not enough to put him.
He's the only player.
As an athlete, he's amazing.
He's the only player in history as well to have 2 runs from scrimmage more than 90 yards.
Yeah.
Still a record today. And then suffered a career-ending hip injury, carried on with the baseball. He was a good baseball player as well. And he pro bowled an all-star game 89 and 90 in both sports. He's the only person to ever all-star game in 2 major sports. So I think, maybe an honourable mention, but it's just something that you probably won't ever see that happening though, because wasn't Russell Wilson going to go and play baseball when he first signed as well? He was number 1 pick.
Patrick Mahomes as well.
Yeah. And anyone else that you feel that you missed out now?
Rossi. Who's Mine Adams?
Wolfie.
What, darts? No, surely not. No, it can't be that Mine Adams. No, I don't. Maybe Maxwell. If it's, he wasn't anyway.
Get Chris to put it in the comments who it is.
Yeah, I'm thinking Martin Adams dart player. I don't know if there's anyone else. Rossi, MotoGP. Forgot him. He would have been on my list if I remembered. Won't lie. I don't watch the sport, but I know he dominated that sport for a long time. So he's someone who would have been on my list. Chris Froome, he won 3 or 4 Tour de France's. Another one, yes, there's been more, but I don't know anyone else apart from the ones who won it. So yeah, I would say he would be there.
I think Laurence Armstrong, if he hadn't cheated, would have been
Laurence Armstrong.
High up,
he would have been in the top 10 for me because who he was. I think a few rugby players: Driscoll, Johnson, McCraw McCall definitely.
Yeah, I think that's one.
Yeah. What's his name? The New Zealand boy, very similar to Bo Jackson. I can't remember his name. The New Zealand player. His name's gone up my head. You'll know him. I forgot his name. He died about 10 years. No, he died about 10 years ago. That's it. He's the number one.
He basically battered 10 England players over the line, didn't
he? On his day, he was the best player naturally, but obviously his career was hampered by injuries. But he could have been on the list as well, just for what he achieved. Fred Perry, Jay brought him up. John McEnroe, Boris Becker. All these guys could have been in the list, but I'm not a biggest tennis fan as others. There's a few golfers, I've already named them. Bob Jones, Hagen, Hogan. I could go on. But at the end of the day, apart from Rossi, maybe Higgins and Froome, Hoy, Wiggins and Rossi, I'm not that bothered about anyone else not being in the list. I think room three.
With the three that I might squeeze them all in as well.
Yeah, it is hard. Wolfie, I didn't think that, Max. I didn't think Wolfie was that good, but fair enough.
Max will probably go mad at me, but what I think about with Wolfie is he had every chance to go over to PDC and try to go toe-to-toe with Taylor, but he stayed in the BDO.
Yeah, so that's what he did.
Yeah, I'd always hold that against him for that he didn't. I know he was like the English captain all the time, but
he was a good player, great player. Yeah. But for me, I think you can't be one of the greatest if you don't play in the main league.
A bit like what Barney did. Barney went over there and proved he could do it. So
yeah.
Anyway, right, getting down to the top 30 now. So we've got Diego Maradona at 30. Obviously, one of the best players on the eye. But do you think that's main? Obviously, didn't achieve as much as some of the guys higher up on the list. But is that just the way he played the game got him in that position?
He played the game, won the World Cup. Had a good record for a number 10. He wasn't a striker, so yeah. Listen, he's someone that a lot of people base their game on now. So I had to put him in there. He's a cheating cheater. I was going to call him a cunt, but it's not fair. He can't defend himself. Great player. I had to be in the list. I think he's in the right place.
So anyway, we'll go on. Brian Lara, obviously one of the first big hitters, wasn't he? Really, like multiple 300+ scores. Knocking on there, he opened up, and it wasn't like he was pushing them for singles. He was getting a strike rate around 89%, wasn't he, when he was getting some of those big scores. Like he'd get about 300 and something runs for 400 and something balls. He wasn't doing a Nasser Hussain and taking 3 days to get those runs.
Yeah, favourite player of all time when it comes to batting. Unfortunately, there's a few more that I think are better. But he's legendary 400, 300 scores on multiple occasions.
501 for Warwickshire, wasn't it? Was that one?
501 for Warwickshire. Great player, in the right position. Very happy where he is.
And Senna at 28. Do you think maybe if went a bit prematurely during his career with that crash? Do you think if he obviously hadn't happened to him, he'd have been a bit higher, he'd have won more?
Agreed. Yep.
So there's another one. So Georgie Best, again, he's probably a frustrating pick for a lot of people to watch. You just look at him and just think, if you came from Mars and saw him, you'd just be thinking, what the hell is this? What have I just seen there? But then you've got the players like, afterwards, like the Cruyffs, the Van Bastens, that have then gone on and taken the game to what, now we've got the Messis and Ronaldos. But it all starts from players like Pele, players like Best being 10 years ahead of their generation, I suppose, doesn't it?
He was just a marvel.
And considering he was out just shaking birds and drinking all the time, imagine if he'd actually turned up to training. Imagine if he tried and trained.
He still had an absolutely wonderful career, but I tell you what, if he tried, he could have had a career like Messi and Ronaldo, and he would have been a lot higher, and a lot of people would put number one. He was honestly that good. George Best was, I obviously didn't see him live, but just watch his highlights, and you'll be like, wow.
And again now, so baseball, Babe Ruth, a lot of people put him in the top 10 as well. Again, it's North American fans, but again, you wouldn't have ever watched it. You're not a big baseball fan, so is he just sort of on there because he was that big in the game? You just felt obliged you have to put him in, and that's where he's fallen.
I'm more of a baseball fan than hockey, but very similar to what you just said, and I completely agree. He had to be there, but I wouldn't argue American put him in the top 10. He's a pioneer for the sport, simple as. Yeah,
the only thing that soiled it a bit for me was like they still had the segregation going on when he was. I'm sure he would have still dominated, no problem. But there's always that question now, like, because obviously when they came over and then Willie Mays smashed it, you got Barry Bonds a bit more recently. If it had been a level playing field back then and he'd had everyone to play against, Again, he probably would have still got the numbers, but it's just something that will always be brought up, I suppose.
Of course, agreed.
Yeah. So now Rafa Nadal, so the first of the big three. Is that just simply, you've said to me privately, he just dominates one Grand Slam where the others spread them out? Yeah,
agreed. Spot
if it was,
a great player, but he hasn't won at Wimbledon or he hasn't won at any. Take away the Australian title this year with no Djokovic. The first time he won in one of the other three majors in like 8 years.
Yeah, I think he won.
He hasn't won the US Open since 2000.
He won a couple of them when he was first sort of becoming the top player, weren't he? But then he's literally just lived on French Opens every year now.
He hasn't won Wimbledon for 11 years. Hasn't won the US Open for about 8 years. First time he won the Australia Open in that 8 years. So for me, great player, won a lot of slams, but it's the French Open, and that makes him one-dimensional. His head-to-head record's inferior against the other two. The other two beat him on the other services. Great player, legend.
Not as bad
the way he's been able to dominate the French Open is one of the reasons why he's the big three. But if you take away the French Open, he's still got a great career. But he's only won 9 majors, which is less than 9 Grand Slams, which is the same as McEnroe, Becker, and Borg, and all that.
I was looking at his head-to-heads as well because I was feeling that he just gets pooed on all the time. But he wasn't actually that far behind on the head-to-heads. But again, if he's beating these guys at the French Open every year, he's getting a free win, isn't he? They've only played like 50 times, most of the big three, against each other because they're obviously the finalists all the time. They don't play in the early rounds.
Finals, isn't it? Yeah.
So
but take away French Open, he wouldn't be.
I think,
in the list.
Like what you said with Jimmy Anderson, I think he's done well to overcome a lot of serious knee injuries and hip injuries that would have perhaps ended a person's career, and he's come back and still won.
Agreed.
So now Floyd Mayweather Jr. Again, a lot of people would think that he'd be higher, but is it just the fact because he does rely on just the defensive art and he's not really got knockout power, he's got brittle bones, he's not really...
He's not someone who's entertaining, he's a bit boring, and he did duck a few people and he fought everyone at the right time. Pacquiao at the end of his career, I know he's fought
he messed about with random drug testing, didn't he? Demanding daily drug tests.
He fought Canelo when he was younger and smaller.
He got him out of the way because he
killed. He knew he should have. He faced was it Shane Mosley when he was older and passed it. Still a great career. What was it? 49, 15-0. Won everything he had to win. Won a few weight divisions. He had to be in the top 25, but for me, I don't rate him as high. I think he's a bit boring and he's not someone that I like, but he has to be in the list. If he was in the top 20, I wouldn't argue it.
Yeah, so moving on, Cheggers just brought it up. I tend to agree as well. So Michael Phelps at number 23, I think, he can be a little bit higher because I know you've spoken privately to say it's only in swimming, but when you're looking at he has to make his body go that fast in water, which isn't something you can just go out and do. Like George Best can turn up to a game pissed and after a massive shagging session. If Michael Phelps went out on the Charlie shagging 10 birds the night before, he would not manage one length in that pool and he wouldn't win any medals. So he's had to actually put his body to make him swim that fast, yeah?
It's not. It's not.
You told me his name was Cheggers. You told me that was just his screen name.
Yeah, it's Cheggers. Listen, I don't watch swimming. He's in the list more. He's in the list similar to Redgrave. He's in the list similar to Gretzky and Babe Ruth. He's in there because of what he achieved in Olympics and how many medals he's won. No one's more than him. Absolute beast in the pool. I'm not someone who watches swimming very often, so I'm not going to act like I'm a massive swimming fan. 23 for me was a push. I would struggle to put him in the top 20, but I don't disagree with what you and what Manzi and what anyone else is saying. That's perfectly fine.
I just think
because you probably watch a bit more, and what you're saying is spot on. But I'm not a swimming fan. I'm not going to put him higher because I don't think Olympics is great, but sometimes you're always going to look at stuff that you watch more regularly. I don't watch swimming. I watch it maybe once every 4 years, maybe a couple of times a day or a couple of times a week. And I don't know any other swimmers apart from the main ones that dominate. What a legend. Always going to be in the top 30. But for me, he's in the right spot. Right spot.
I just find...
But if you and Bundy, you and Cheggers said top 15, top 10.
Who's Bundy?
Top 10 a push. Yeah, Cheggers. If you said top 10, top 20, fair enough.
Yeah, I just find with all the athletes, swimming, things like that, I find they can't turn up at 90%, yeah? They can't turn up at 90%. Where other sports where there's skill involved, you can get away with it because of your skill. With these, their body has to be 100%, or they're winning fuck all. So a lot of dedication needed for the sports.
Otherwise, we won't get this list done.
So Shane Warne at 22.
Yeah, great spin bowler of all time. Simple as.
Yeah. What about Malaritharan?
All right, Munsey. All right, calm down. It's Munsey.
What about?
I'm on your show tomorrow.
What about Malaritharan?
Carrying on.
I didn't hear that bit.
Chuck the ball.
All right.
Illegal.
But you find with Shane Warne as well, it's his it's the man as well as the performance. So you know, like you've got the laugh. He has a laugh.
So likable.
He's on the commentary. He's a bit of a lad. So you've got that little bit of an extra.
Macca's the most Kobe fan, and fair enough. For me, Kobe's skill and determination and sport forward talent. Anyway, from Phelps, but yeah, that's fair enough.
Time's pushing on. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at 21. Was he that good, or was he just as tall as the net? He could just keep.
He dominated everyone. He was MVP. He was the best player of all time pre-Jordan, so he's got to be in the list. I think he's in the right spot. I wouldn't have him any higher. We just got a guest coming on.
Are you fucking kidding? Fucking Warne over Phelps. Are you lot fucking kidding? Warne threw a ball.
By the way, listen. By the way, welcome, making his live debut for the channel. It's Munsey, aka Cheggers.
Fucking Cheggers, fucking. You're kidding me? How can you have Warne who throws a ball? That's all he does, and then you got Phelps that done 100, 200, relay, 400. You're having a laugh.
More of a cricket fan than swimming.
Warne was out there having a kebab and a beer while he was doing
exactly.
I'm more of a cricket fan.
Anyway, Munsey, don't slag me off. I had to compile this list. He made it. I've had to sit here and edit all this and pull it up every day and get all of this.
Let's hope we don't get no unsubscribers. Do you know what I mean? And then you got fucking Federer. Federer as well. Oh, I'm going. I can't do it.
Bye, Cheggers.
Munsey cameo.
Right, AP McCoy at 20.
Fuck off, Jay. You're all cunts, all of you. You, Munsey, Jay, and Mackie, you can all suck my fucking dong. I appreciate the support and the feedback. Carry on, sorry.
Yeah, you can all fuck off, but please like and subscribe. Please support the channel. Right, AP McCoy.
Big up to Munsey Talks, by the way. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Good channel, good lad. And I'll be on there tomorrow to transfer show. So big up, Munsey. Thank you for the cameo. I appreciate you coming on.
No, he must be desperate, and he's.
He said he got permission to jump on. Carry on.
Right. AP McCoy, 20.
Jump jockey all the time.
Okay. I think it's a bit high, but carry on. So, Ronnie O'Sullivan, number 19.
Snooker player of all time.
Yeah.
Right place.
I think as well, like I've said to you privately as well, I think he should have won more with his talent, but he's won.
He can still win more.
Yeah, he's won the joint most now, and he's going to win one more, and that's it. He's going to be the outright winner, isn't he?
He's the Don. A lot of people would have him in the top 20 from Britain. I think a lot of people who like snooker would. Again, snooker's not an American sport, really. So, but for me, would you have Ronnie in the top 20?
There or thereabouts. Obviously, I've got to look at some of the players here that I might have moved out, but it's not going to be a massive swing.
Yeah.
So Don Bradman next, number 18.
9 average has to be
again, that's someone you're never going to... He got out for a duck on his last one, wasn't he, to England. He would have had 100 average if he'd...
100 average.
But didn't play a lot. Didn't play a lot either, did he? Just had a massive strike rate.
Yeah, but he hit a lot of times, 50 test match, enough. He's enough to put him in this list. He's the benchmark.
I think if he was playing today, he'd be good, but there wouldn't be that domination because he was so far ahead of his time. That's why he got that ridiculous strike rate.
Yeah, of course. But he would do it in this day and age as well.
Yeah, but because he was the only one that could do it.
Yeah.
So, Sugar Ray Robinson. Again, we got a load of hate on this, but that's because they thought he was the 17th best boxer of all time. But if you look at the list, he's the second best boxer that we've put on there. So, again, I think he lost a lot of fights, but he had a hell of a lot of fights, didn't he? Was it 206, 209 fights he fought in?
He
lost
won like 175.
Yeah, lost a couple of draws, no contests, and what was it, about 19 losses out of 210 fights?
Yeah, still fucking immense.
So that tells you that he was active. He was fighting every couple of weeks, wasn't
he? And he fought everyone to fight. Didn't duck anyone.
And they were 15 rounders as well, weren't they, back then as well?
Go.
So
he
must have been fighting concussed as well a few times.
What a legend he is.
Yeah, Roger Federer 16. So
Saudi's career in the last 10 years.
Yeah, my criticism of him, if he'd retired sort of like I say 32, 33, he'd have had a higher legacy than now. Because I think he took over from Sampras dominating Wimbledon. So I think again outside of those he did spread them, but I think Wimbledon was where he got everything. I think Novak is more sort of like the all-rounded one, isn't
he? Yeah. He's saying Ronaldo and he's saying Floyd Mayweather Jr. Get off the fucking cocaine, Jay. Fucking Floyd Mayweather Jr. Fucking cock.
So
yeah,
next,
you're right about Federer. Federer is great. He's brilliant, but for me, he's soured his career the last.
I think he's a finesse player.
He hasn't won that much. He's been
Novak Djokovic is just an absolute bully.
He's the best. There's no argument. Maka says Nadal, Jay says Federer. They're both wrong. It's Nadal.
It's Novak.
It's
my bank balance will tell you it's Novak. It's my boy.
Yeah, 100%. Beats him up. He's been more consistent, and he's won more in the last 10 years.
Yeah. So here, Michael Schumacher, I actually think he's the best F1 driver of all time. That's my opinion. I was a little bit older than you, so I got to see him when he first stepped in to Jordan to save him on the last race of the season, and he didn't finish the race, but he qualified somewhere ridiculously high in that shitty car, and then there was just Eddie Jordan knew he weren't going to be able to ever keep him then because he was that good in qualifying. And he went to Ferrari. He did it at Benetton. He went to Ferrari. Ferrari weren't that good at the time. He went there, and then him and Ferrari then dominated for, 6 consecutive seasons, was it? 5 at least?
Yeah, listen, he's a legend. I just hate the guts. I hated him.
And I just think
my preference would be someone else, but
yeah,
I'd understand if you put him in the top 10. I'd understand if you say he's the greatest.
There's
no argument against it. It's just preference. I prefer someone else.
What he did in the wet as well, like he was like 2 times faster than anyone else when it rained. So he obviously had some bollocks on him.
You can hate someone, but I can't deny his brilliance. Robertson wasn't a heavyweight, Jay. And I don't watch UFC, and I'm not Conor McGregor fan.
And if you're asking Chris, St. Pierre is better than McGregor. Khabib is better than McGregor. John Jones is better than McGregor. So he could be on the list, but those 3 would have to be above him for me.
We don't watch UFC. They're shit. Carry on, Phil. Otherwise,
that's Graham's opinion. Number 14, Pele.
Yeah,
any higher.
I think his legacy has been tarnished by a lot of people, and I'm not one of them who's tarnished it. I still think he's an amazing talent, but I just think there's other people better than him. Simple as. I just think he's a fantastic. He maybe top 10, but I think he originally was actually 10 in my list, but then I moved him down to 14. Great, right position, legend, simple as, and he's not in a bad position.
There's a lot of players that get criticised for being too good for their era as well. So they just go, "Oh, they were all crap in that day. That's why he scored loads of goals." But you think they were all crap because he was so good?
Yeah, carry on. I'm loving these comments. Move, bitch.
Right, Jack Nicklaus, number 13. Happy with that position?
Not on position. Yeah, I'm very happy with that one. Second best goal of all time. Yeah, no doubt.
I think, when people say, "Oh, he won more than Woods," but he didn't. If Woods hadn't had the injuries and the outside of golf stuff, he'd have beaten those records comfortably. Yeah, he was winning 2 a year comfortably.
Woods dominated the sport.
A major part of his career.
He won more than Nicklaus in 10 years, but Nicklaus won it in 20 years. So it's enough said. But Nicklaus is a legend.
Yeah, it's just majors. Yeah. LeBron James 12.
Happy with that. I moved him. I originally had him 17th, didn't I? And then I realised I had him too high. Moved him to 12th. Second best basketball player of all time. He's a global megastar. Everyone knows who he is. He's a beast. But for me, he's just outside top 10.
Not that I say that he's better than MJ, but just with the debate that goes around with those two, the only thing I would say with it, like MJ's done the three-peat twice in 7 years, or in between his year and a half off, basically. So that's literally like in an eight seasons where it was just him doing it and he was untouchable. But then when he went to the Wizards, obviously he did a second retirement. So you could say that sort of he was still he's got the best average for like points per game, regardless of how many games you played. But with LeBron, what he's managed to do with 3 different teams, and they haven't. Obviously, he went to Miami to win stuff. That was a dream team. Then he came back to a shitty Cavs, made them better, and then he came back to a shitty Lakers, and they won.
LeBron's a beast. His longevity, his consistency is great. But there's no doubt that he's not the number 1. He is the second best by a mile. And for me, he's just outside the top 10. I could have put him 10th, but no further than that.
Phil Taylor, number 11.
Greatest darts player of all time. You already know how much I love darts. He's won 16 world titles. He's surprised he's
obviously
that high.
You're into darts. No, I'm just surprised you didn't have any other darts players in there, because I thought maybe you would have squeezed a couple of preferences in.
was close. Van Gerwen was close. Barney wasn't far away. 2 guys I didn't mention earlier that could have been in the list. But I've gone with the 2 biggest names in dart history, and Taylor has to be in the top 20. He's unlucky not to be 10th, 9th, or even 8th for that matter. What a legend. I hate him to bits, but I respect him as a player. He was fantastic. And 11, fair position. I could have put him higher.
Yeah. So number 10, we're into the meaty part now. So Lewis Hamilton. So again, like I prefer Schumacher. You put Hamilton, they're not far apart on your list. So what beats Schumacher for you then with Lewis?
I just like Hamilton more, and I think Hamilton's more of a talented driver. He's got better record. Yes, I don't know if he's raced longer than Schumacher. I think they might have raced the same amount of time. I just like him more. I just think he's a better driver. Yes, I probably prefer it because he's British, and obviously Schumacher's German. Not disrespect to German people. That's it. That's it, really.
I just feel, if you look at how good the cars were for each of them, I think pound for pound Schumacher would have just done him.
I disagree with that, but I'm not saying that that's a bad comment. I'm saying that's a ridiculous comment. That's a fair comment. They're both great. I just think Hamilton was better, simple as. And I think he should be in the top 10.
I think just too much whinging on the radio, when there's just something you just irritates you. Not going to get into him riding his scooter around the paddock. I won't get into that. Yeah. But just Schumacher, I just felt was the more. Well, he was just a German efficiency, wasn't he? Just in there driving. Number 9, bad guy. Yeah, number 9, Novak. So again, he's top of your tennis thing. Number 9, could have probably argued that he could have gone higher because of how good he is. But number 9, happy with that?
Yeah, I could have put him higher. I could have been top 6, top 5.
But for me,
he's the greatest tennis player of all time.
He's just won another major since we did this list, so there's potential for him to go even higher, isn't there?
Yeah, he's the Don, mate. He's so good. I love Novak. I'm a big fan of Novak.
And he's a guy as well. If you were making a tennis player, you'd just basically make him and just add a couple of bits to it. When
you remember, he didn't come straight in and dominate. He won a few, and then took a while to get better than the other 2, and now he's better than them. Simple as.
But he was skinnier and less athletic then as well. He trained a lot.
I don't even think he was at his best for this Wimbledon, and he still won it.
Yeah,
that says everything you need to know. Simple as.
But that shot he does, where you should go down the line with a backhand, but he opens his body up and then goes forehand, cross diag to just completely wrong foot the guys, and you think you could have just played that shot, but he does it to make them fall on the floor and just to bully them, and that gets into your head when you're being bullied by someone. That gets in your head.
Exactly.
So Sachin Tendulkar, number 8. We didn't get too many views on this, but I don't know whether that's just because of the geography that we got released to. I think if you were doing this list in India, you'd got a lot more views and stuff.
He'd be number 1 in India.
Yeah.
And I have no issue with that. He's the greatest batsman of all time. He's the greatest cricket player of all time. Tendulkar is an absolute legend. 30-year career, 24-year career, most test runs, so many hundreds. I can't. he's not my favourite.
I think people liked him as well, though, didn't they? As a person,
he's likeable. He's a national hero. He is India. He's the most famous person in Indian history. So that's it. And I've said he's in the top 10. He's in the perfect position. I wouldn't move him. I think he's great batsman, greatest cricket player of all time.
Yeah. Number 7, Usain Bolt.
Yeah, it's global superstar. What he did in that time span. Obviously, I know you're a big track and field fan. I've got no issue where he is. I think Marvin said he should be number 1. I think that's a push. I think it'd be very hard to get him in the top 5, but I think it'd be very wrong not having him in the top 10. So I personally think he's in the right position. I'm happy where he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like the argument I have all the time. I favour the athletes because it's him making his body run that fast, where Lewis is putting his foot down on an accelerator and a car that's been made for him. Where Bolt doesn't get anyone controlling him with a controller or anything. He's got to go out there and run that fast, which he did.
Yeah, he's a legend, but Marvin, I'm not going to pick on Marvin. Marvin said that he's more popular than Ronaldo. Is that true?
Well, I saw the screenshot of that, so we know it's. But
it's not though, is it? Who's more popular, Bolt or Ronaldo?
Yeah, but again, we're not doing a popularity contest, are we? We're doing a GOAT contest.
Ronaldo's bigger than Bolt.
But you've only got them 2 apart, so it's not like as if there's a massive difference with them. So
but
it's still
who's more popular. Who's more known?
Yeah, I've never
had
for Marvin, it's not the popular vote. It's about what's been achieved, isn't it? So I'm not saying Ronaldo's achieved more than him. I'm just saying I might have even put Bolt ahead of Ronaldo, but I wouldn't have put Bolt number 1 on the list. Yeah. So obviously we move on now. We'll do these as a double act because there's been a debate. Messi, Ronaldo. You've put them one after another. Messi 6, Ronaldo 5.
2 great players of all time. I could never put a footballer number 1 because I think I can't put someone. I just think for football, you have to put someone who's won absolutely everything to be number 1. And Messi and Ronaldo haven't won everything. They haven't won the World Cup. If Pele played for Barcelona and played for Man United and won the league and Champions League on both occasions and then won the World Cup and done what he'd done for Brazil, he'd be number 1 because he'd done it. They haven't won the World Cup for that reason why they're not number 1.
For me as well, I think Jay will agree. He can comment on this if he's still watching. I think there's a bigger gulf than one position between Ronaldo and Messi. I think maybe if you'd had Messi up at about 8, maybe 8 and Tendulkar down, I think there's a bigger gap than one.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
And everything,
Ronaldo's better than Messi. There was
everything you said,
everything
you said in the original video, what you did in the video, the way you described it was spot on. But I was just surprised to see them so close together from how you explained Ronaldo.
Yes, that's fair. Like I said, I think I could have put Messi a bit further down in maybe 8. They're both in the top 10. But if you ask a British person or European person who would be your greatest player of all time, sportsman of all time, they're going to have Ronaldo and Messi probably one in the top 3. They will, because they're the 2 greatest footballers of all time. So I don't understand that. You ask American, they might not even be in their top 50. For me, Ronaldo's better. He deserves to be in the top 5. Messi just short. But Ronaldo proved why he's better. He proved it last year. But no one talks about Messi, the fact he scored 4 goals for PSG in the Farmers League. But anyway, we'll move on.
So Muhammad Ali, number 4. He's called the greatest of all time, but he's not claimed the greatest of all time on your list. So why number 4? Not number 1.
I just think there's 3 better. 3 better. He's the greatest sportsman of all time. Just for me, there's 3 better.
Yeah. Like what I said to you privately, where the bits I criticised him on, obviously there is the criticism of 3 people that he thought he lost the first time. He had to go back and avenge those things. The amount of times he won the title, obviously, if you'd only won them once, you'd a GOAT because you never lost. But I think for him as well, it was what he did as a person as well, and his charisma and as an entertainer. Yeah. It's the package, isn't it? If you were looking at his boxing record and the wins he had, because he fought quite a lot of the same people. Yeah, but you'd say, right, Vitaly Klitschko's record's better, but we're not putting Klitschko anywhere in this list because they haven't done the stuff for the public as what Muhammad Ali did. He was big on talk shows, weren't he? I remember that one when he was fighting Joe Frazier and he had that toy monkey one and he was pretending that was Joe Frazier and like beating him up in the corner.
He
couldn't do it today, but he didn't care. And what he did as well with the military thing, and just said, "Right, fuck you, I'm not going," and lost 4 years of his career for that.
Made him an icon.
Like the Black Power movements, a lot of that was instigated by him. Like, saying no to legend. Yeah. So that's what I say again.
Iconic.
And then Tiger Woods, we spoke about him earlier, number 3. I think he had the potential to be number 1 if he had no issues in his career and personal life.
He still had an absolute world-class career. Don't get me wrong, his career's amazing, phenomenal, but it could have been even better. He still came back and won Masters and tournaments when he came back from the issues. He could have easily been number 1, 100%.
And there's a chance we never see that again because of this LIV stuff going on now.
Exactly.
There's a chance what he's done will never be recreated.
Exactly. He's in the right spot for me, but he could have been number one.
And obviously, it's hard now because you've got just absolute all-time greats here. So Tom Brady, number 2. So he's what?
No one's more Super Bowls than Tom Brady.
Yeah.
He's the greatest American football player of all time. This is, again, personal preference. I'm a big American football fan. I'm an absolutely massive Tom Brady fan. What he's done in his career, to do how he's done it, for where he's come from, is phenomenal. He's in the right spot. He was very close to being number one. 7 Super Bowls, 45 years old, to go and win one in your first year of a new team. That's, by the way, a shit team. The fact is, he was the 6th pick. What a brilliant player he is. What a legend he is. And he's still playing now. And Jay, you can fuck off.
If you can correct me if I'm wrong, but do you think he gets a couple more points on this list? So like above Ali and Woods, perhaps, because of the shitty pick that he was picked at and the fact he went to Tampa and still did it with another team.
Yes.
If he just stayed at the Pats and retired, saw out his end, you'd maybe put him as 4th, yeah?
Agreed.
Yep. So then MJ, number 1, obviously you make no secret of your love for Michael Jordan. Even before we've done this list, you've always been banging on when people give LeBron credit. So just quickly sum up why you love Jordan. I'm not saying I'm agreeing with you on this, but you just tell the people why
Michael
it's Jordan.
Jordan played, and basketball was harder back in the day. It was harder for me. The players were defensively better for me. Jordan was able to do everything you had to do. Great defender, great on the rim, take a 3-pointer, could take a 2-pointer mid-range. He was scoring champion every single year. He played a full season. He was electric from a rookie, became a superstar within 1 year. He won 6 MVP championships, 6 MVPs in the finals, 5 MVP for the season. He should have won 8. There was 3 occasions where he didn't win it for some strange reason, and he'll tell you that. So everything about this guy is absolutely immense. There's nothing I can't say about the guy that makes me. I just love him. Max, you saying he's 42? Tom's 45.
Brady.
He's 45, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he was 40. It was 43 when he won the Super Bowl, was it? Or
Oh yeah, what I'm saying, he's now 45, though, isn't he? That's what I'm saying. To still be doing that at 45.
okay.
Yeah, but he was 40. Was he 43 when he won? 42, 43 when
I think when he was 42 when he moved, and then 43 when he won it.
Yeah, 43 when he won it, but he's at 45 now. Yeah, but regarding Michael Jordan, absolute legend. There's no doubt. For me, athlete, he was the biggest person in the world in the 90s. He's still a massive personality of his franchise. He was just all around a better player. People say that he had a team set up. Bar Scottie Pippen and Rodman for a few years. That first team, you know, the first 3-peat, he didn't have any great players with him apart from Pippen. They were all good utility players. He made the team how it was, and he became a team player as well. He realised sometimes it wasn't just about him making the shots. You know, some of the championship wins was him giving the ball to someone like Steve Kerr. He was a team player. He was motivated. He won everything he had to win in the sport. He won a scoring championship every single year. That says everything about the guy. He went to the Wizards as an older player and still played at high standards and got 2 All-Stars. To do what he done, he's number 1. Simple as.
I was watching a video where Dennis Rodman was talking, and he was saying if Jordan played today, he would just absolutely ruin everyone. It wouldn't even be
kill
close.
everyone. He'll kill everyone. He'll get 70 points a game.
When you see Harden falling on the floor because someone's put their index finger on his chest and to draw a foul, like before you're going in with elbows in MJ's time, aren't you?
The sport wasn't like it. The sport was so much better in the 80s and 90s. I'm telling you that now, early 2000s. It's easier now. Trust me, it's easier to score now. Jordan would fucking have a feast. Have a feast. Anyway, that's my number 1. I know we got one more banter. Very quickly, Phil, because I've got to go. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I think we've sort of got ahead of ourselves. We sort of did that as we went for the last bit, didn't we? So yeah, I think we've covered all bases. I would say people that watch this after. So if people are watching this after the live, just stick in the comments like where people you wouldn't have had in, where you'd have put the people, and just any sort of general objections, and we'll try and respond.
Sorry, that's all good, Phil. One more comment before we go. What a clueless comment. No, Max, I'm right. One games 85-65 wouldn't be able to keep up. Jordan played against players that were defensively better. He would score now for easy. We'll get to that another day, Max. We'll have a Jordan James debate. For me, I'm happy with my list. I take the criticism on board, and I like everyone's got an opinion, and I get majority of people's opinions. But that's my list, and everyone can go fucking shove it up their ass.
And like and subscribe, please.
Like and subscribe, guys. I've got to go. Phil, thank you so much for hosting today. And we'll be back. We've got some previews coming in the next couple of weeks for the season. We'll have some lives and we'll have some pre-recorded ones. Jay and Maka will be about as normal. And yeah, like and subscribe, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Anything you want to add, Phil?
No, that's all good, mate. Gonna try and get some videos out in the next couple of days, just some random ones that we don't normally do. So keep an eye out for those. And then we're going to be starting the Premier League previews because obviously we've got to get the punditry team back on. So we'll be ready to go from first week of August.
Yeah, big up to everyone in the comments, especially Jay and Mac. I appreciate your input, guys. I thank you for your opinions. It always matters. Everyone's got an opinion. No one's right or wrong. It's been good to chat about this list. But that's it. If you've not seen my list, go back, watch all 60 videos of my top 60. Michael Jordan's number one. And that's it. Have a good day, everyone else. Enjoy the heat. It's still very hot outside. And I've got to go because I'm going to get my ass kicked from the boss. Take care, everyone.
What is that, Monday?
Subscribe. No,
are you late for Monday Talks?
Yeah, I look like no. I've got to go and pick Laura up.
All right.
He's going to kick my ass.
All right. Good.
Anyway,
good
guys,
luck.
have a good day. See you later. And see you later, Phil. Enjoy the dogging.
See you later, Cheggers. Talks.